Some of the best things on the internet. J.K. Rowling's Harvard commencement speech. You know, there are 2 or 3 commencement speeches online that are just worth their weight in gold. And one of them I mentioned before is Jim Carrey's commencement address in 2014. And then, of course, everyone knows the iconic Steve Jobs. This is Harvard Magazine's, J.K. Rowling's. Now, this is one of those, it's only gotten 2.6 million views. And it's one of those things where you think, you know, this might be one of the top 10 things on the internet. And you know, everybody has a top 10, you know, top 10 best athletes, best top 10 richest people, the best top 10 Fibonacci's. Boom. This is the top 10. This is in my top 10. J.K. Rowling's speech. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it is just, as we said in Oklahoma, it's chock full. So you kind of know I'm not from, you know, we might need some music for this. What do you think? She says something here about poverty that I want to really stress. And it's interesting because she starts talking about failure. In fact, that's the theme. She's talking about failure to a bunch of Harvard grads. And she mentions something in here that I think is probably one of the best phraseologies of anything I've ever said. And I know I'm talking about J.K. Rowling, the gifted writer, author, and just her story. You know, she gives the usual stuff about just achievable goals as the first step to self-improvement. You know, and if that's all you hear is, you know, you can turn off this right now in 2 minutes. You're like, dude, achievable goals. And whatever goal you may have, what's the achievable goal? And I even find with myself, sometimes I lose that. Like, you know, I love day trading. I love photography. There's a lot of things I love, but often I struggle with, well, where am I going with photography and with trading and with this? And sometimes, you know, I get so caught up with the achievable goals, and there's a piece of that. She says here, she talks about the paradox and irony. And it's interesting because when you think of what faith is and what magic is, it's really just ironic. Like J.K. Rowling here is talking to Harvard grads about failure. She was 42 years old and homeless. I want you to listen to a few things that she says.
At the thought of giving this commencement address have made me lose weight.
And count my $50 billion. I mean, you know, you got to think. You know, she's a writer, homeless writer, and the rest is history. So this is her story, and it's worth 20 minutes. In fact, if you're a teacher or you're an educator type and you're looking, or maybe you're just a parent and you're looking for 20 minutes of how you could either encourage yourself or encourage someone else, guide yourself, guide someone else, it's right here. It's right here. J.K. Rowling in her commencement Harvard address. In fact, what's ironic is I went to college, and now knowing what I know, it's like I'm not sure I would even go to college, because some of these I've gotten more out of these commencement speeches online than I got from actually going to a university. And so that's one of the things that I want to do with this channel, is to share the gems out there, because not everybody's going to be Googling the top 10 best pieces of the internet. J.K. Rowling. She says something at minute 5 that I want to go to that is so worth it. I mean, let me just, give me a second. Here you go. Listen to this.
That it is not an ennobling experience.
She's talking about poverty.
Poverty entails fear and stress and sometimes depression. It means 1,000 petty humiliations and hardships. Climbing out of poverty by your own efforts, that is something on which to pride yourself. But poverty itself is romanticized only by fools. What I feared most for myself at your age was not poverty, but failure.
Failure.
At your age, in spite of a distinct lack of motivation at university, where I had spent far too long in the coffee bar writing stories and far too little time at lectures, I had a knack for passing examinations.
That's so meta.
And that, for years, had been the measure of success in my life and that of my peers.
Passing exams.
I am not dull enough to suppose that because you are young, gifted, and well-educated, you have never known heartbreak, hardship, or heartache. Talent and intelligence.
You know, she's talking to a bunch of Harvard graduates about failure and about poverty and homelessness, which if you just think about the irony of that, that's why they're there. They're trying to prevent those things, and they're trying to insulate. That's why their parents spend all that money for them to go there. And then yet the person that they're hiring to speak to the graduates is a person who's experienced everything that they're hoping their child never experiences, in poverty. And she was literally writing stories and practicing her craft in coffee shops, J.K. Rowling. And then at 8 minutes, 10 seconds, she says something that
the fears that my parents had had for me,
I'll leave you
had
with.
for myself,
And then she's talking about fear.
and by every usual standard, I was the biggest failure I knew.
There you go.
Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that failure is fun. That period of my life was a dark one, and I had no idea that there was going to be what the press has since represented as a kind of fairy tale resolution. I had no idea then how far the tunnel extended, and for a long time, any light at the end of it was a hope rather than a reality. So why do I talk about the benefits of failure? Simply because failure meant a stripping away of the inessential. I stopped pretending to myself that I was anything other than what I was, and began to direct all my energy into finishing the only work that mattered to me. Had I really succeeded at anything else, I might never...
Listen to it again.
So why do I talk about the benefits of failure? Simply because failure meant a stripping away of the inessential. I stopped pretending to myself that I would...
The stripping away of the inessentials. The stripping away of the inessentials. And let me give you a little Fibonacci spin on that. You know, in this channel, I've been really open about just some of my own journey. And, you know, I wasn't in a London coffee shop, but I was in a Muleshoe courtroom. And that's where #MRA happened. And slowly, my life since that moment has been stripping away of the inessentials. The inessentials. And that's a really, really hard reality to face. And let me walk you through that, because any growth means letting go of things. And I could tell you the sad story of a business that I built from scratch. It took me 10 years and to be regulated out of that business. Again, that was a beautiful experience stripped away, and it was inessential to the next place that I'm going. The house I lived in, again, stripping away of the inessentials. Even, you know, my children, my beloved children, and how that's burned in my heart. And and the only thing I can offer the community is the advocacy for men's rights, even though that's in the infancy. And in 2016, it's in its infancy, but where men's rights and federally protected statuses and false abuse allegations and 2503 or Texas Criminal Code 2503, where will that be in 30 years? And if I could be a part of that journey and part of this, one of the bricks in the wall of men's rights matter and what's happening to men in civil and criminal cases, and that in 30 years, if I can be a part of that, what a privilege and what a frankly a responsibility of saying, this story needs to be told, and you're going to tell it Fibonacci style. You're going to be holla nigga. But this story needs to be told. And in this journey, it hasn't all been stripping away of inessentials. It's been almost a resurrection of things that I always was. You know, I always loved photography. I always loved teaching. I always loved comedy. And then I've learned other things about myself that I never would have known. And so when I show you a video and I talk about it's one of the best pieces online, I mean just that. And it's one of these videos that you can watch every day for the next 6 months or the next 4 months and get something out of it. And when she said that the first time, stripping away of the inessentials, and relationships will go and you have to let them go. And slowly I've let even family members go, you know, people that were my family, living family members, and blessing them when they leave has been the mandate, to bless them when they leave. And I'm probably one of the few people who's chronicled his path online of men's rights and homelessness and even things like the Enneagram, which right now are almost obscure, but in my view, in the next 20, 30 years, the Enneagram will be a part of almost every spiritual path. In fact, looking ahead, if I were to say where I hope the next phase for spirituality is, and all spirituality is just a fancy word for self-improvement or spiritual growth. And for me, I'm a Jesuit, and so I believe that the Bible teaches that as our spirits prosper, then our outsides prosper. And sometimes the ego wants to reverse that. We want to focus on externals in, but the Jesus character is be born again within you. The kingdom of God is within. It's an inward out. And often the journey, the hero's journey, or the born again experience, again, whatever terminology you want. I can watch The Lion King with somebody and they don't realize that I'm seeing the Hall of Christ. I can listen to a Southern Baptist minister and I could see the Christ in that. The Christ is not, and sometimes I think we get so caught up on the terminology. At the end of the day, we're all cowboys or Indians. Pick your side and do good. And when your prayers are answered and there's a stripping away of the inessentials, there's also a renewal. A renewal. And while J.K. Rowling doesn't need my help to tell everybody how wonderful she is, and Harvard doesn't need a Fibonacci to tell it how wonderful it is, that's one of the best pieces online. And wherever you're at, that commencement address or Jim Carrey's commencement address will probably get you through the next 24 to 48 hours. And sometimes, like they say in the 12-step rooms, it's day by day. It's day by day. Day by day. Recently, when a friend of mine, I was given a place to live and they had a family, and so I was kind of asked to leave because they don't want this guy living with them. I tried to explain to them that I was homeless on the front end, but I don't think they really understand that. Just like I think the average person listening to this, they don't understand homelessness, and very few people really understand it. And even J.K. Rowling at minute 8, she talks a little bit about her experience, and it's something that you have to be willing to see, and a lot of us aren't.
Other than what I was, and began to direct all my energy into finishing the only work that mattered to me. Had I really succeeded at anything else, I might never have found the determination to succeed in the one arena where I believed I truly belonged. I was set free because my greatest fear had been realized, and I was still alive, and I still had a daughter whom I adored, and I had an old typewriter and a big idea. And so rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. You might never fail on the scale I did.
J.K. Rowling. I hope there's something there for you. If not, we'll kind of close out with some J.K. Rowling music. Email me your thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe what you heard in that. Or in fact, watch the whole thing.